Hear Me, First Chapter Friday Read Aloud video with the Word Nerd and author interview with Kerry O'Malley Cerra. Today, as you listen, watch for the story quote that will appear on screen. Write it down, word by word, and then follow the instructions given to you by your teacher. Be sure to stay all the way to the end to see if you've written it down correctly. Hey, have you tried the student engagement worksheets that go along with these videos? Check them out via the link in the description box. They're sure to grab your students' attention, keep them focused instead of zoning out while watching the videos. Hi, my name is Amanda Ziba. Welcome to my channel, Learning with the Word Nerd, and another First Chapter Friday video. This week, I'm going to be reading to you from Hear Me by Kerry O'Malley Cerra. And when I first heard about this book, I was really excited to dig into it because the main character struggles with something that someone in my family also struggles with. Now, not to the same levels or to the same severity, but it's always helpful and interesting to read about someone who's going through something similar for a bunch of reasons. One, you know you're not alone. Two, you get some strategies with how to handle or navigate that situation. So yeah, I really like this book. I learned so much. I'm going to read you the inside front cover so you know what it's about. And then I'm going to read you chapter 1, and then we're going to get a chance to talk to the author. All right. A year after being diagnosed with hearing loss, 12-year-old Rayne is doing her best to live a normal life and act like nothing has changed. But her hearing keeps failing her. Even with hearing aids, she has trouble following conversations and hanging out with her friends the way she used to. Her grades are slipping. Surfing is now a wipeout, and she can't understand the lyrics of her favorite singer's new songs. Rayne's parents are pushing her to get cochlear implants, which could restore her hearing, though she would hear sounds differently than she did before hearing loss. Rayne isn't convinced the surgery for CIs is worth the risks and challenges. In fact, she's terrified of it. She begs her parents to consider other options, but they're not budging. With the surgery looming, Rayne sets off on a search for alternatives. Along the way, she discovers that normal can have many meanings, and that even though her ears may be broken, she is not. All right, let's dig in. Chapter 1, Hear Me by Kerry O'Malley Cerra. I climb inside the box of shame. Every time I do, I'm reminded again of how my dog Lucky must have felt with that gigantic plastic funnel stuck around her neck after she got fixed. Dad joked that it was her cone of shame. This giant metal box is mine. My poor pup hid in the closet for days until her stitches healed, but at least she could hide. This box is the one place I can't fudge my way through. No changing the subject, no running away, no control, just the truth smacking me in the face over and over. That my ears are broken. I'm broken. The air is stale and makes me gag as I take up my aids, grab the chunky beige and black headphones, and fasten them over my ears. I don't even need the new lady in the white coat, Yvonne, to help. She looks a little older than my brother Colby, but is definitely too young to be a doctor yet. I've probably done this more times in the last 2 years than she's had birthdays. I sit on the only chair facing away from the tiny, thick, scratched-up window and count the holes climbing the metal walls in perfectly straight lines as Yvonne seals me inside. I only get to 26 before static, which I assume is actually words, buzzes in my ears, gradually getting louder until I actually can figure out what she's saying and repeat it to me. Now, one real quick thing as we're reading, I'll see if I can show you here. Sometimes there are these little asterisks right here, and those represent words that Rayne knows are being said, but she cannot fully hear to understand. So there'll be these like breaks as you're reading, and we'll talk more about those in a little bit. And asterisk, 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 repeat it to me. I know, I think. I know. She's new. I'm not. In this box, it feels like the whole hearing thing's being rubbed in my face, the same way kids in my class made fun of me when I botched the words to the R. Jarrow song lyrics in the Finish the Lyrics contest. Seriously, R. Jarrow's my idol. Everyone knows it. I should have won, but I had no idea the lyrics actually say, "The guy will sing." I've always thought they were, "The sky will rain." I looked it up online when I got home, and sure enough, that was the only line of the whole song that I got wrong. And it wasn't like it was new. I'd been singing it wrong for over a year. Whenever kids joked about me losing, it felt like a slap in the face, a reminder of what I no longer have. a lot like I feel right now with Yvonne. I really hope I can fake pass this test. Maybe that will get Mom off my back and I won't be stuck either looking like a Martian for the rest of my life or living as a mime. Either way, it's a lose-lose situation. People are going to stare. Yvonne says, say the word airplane. From a shelf opposite my chair in the box, stuffed animals and a seriously creepy Mickey Mouse-like mask watch me. They're waiting me for to mess up. But this was an easy one. Airplane, I repeat. Say the word hurl. Not only do I hear the word, but I feel it deep in my belly every time I'm locked in here. Every time I'm forced to call in my nearly photographic memory by picturing the notebook I keep. It's filled with passwords from this test. I write them down every time as soon as I get out of this box. I try to memorize them, hoping for once they'll reuse some, so I, for once, can leave the box of shame without feeling stupid. But lately, to me, stupid feels synonymous with sudden hearing loss. Hurl, I whisper as my stomach clenches. Say the word asterisk H asterisk N asterisk. I flip through the words I store in my head and beg the tears to stay locked behind my eyeballs. I pick a word I clearly visualize on page 4. Shown? Gripping the arms of the chair, I force myself not to turn around. Force myself not to plaster my eyes against the window to see if Yvonne has marked my answer right or wrong. But honestly, I don't need to pick. It's probably wrong. It's probably a TH sound, not a SH, and how do I confuse them? I sit silently as my ears try to make sense of the next few words, but they don't. So I start guessing. Because I have to make Mom believe I'm fine, or at least prove that I'm not getting worse. Because I'm not. I concentrate, closing my eyes, blocking everything out, even my own thoughts, and strain with all that's in me to hear the words. I can make out the word vine, I think. No, I'm positive. I repeat it. Then I hear M asterisk asterisk N. Come on, Rayne, think. Vowels are not easy for me, but the M, I heard an M. The N sounded like N. Moon, I blurt before the next word can fill the headphones, all while my heart pulls like a rip current. I guess on a few more, knowing if this were a test in school, I'd definitely get an F. There's no grade for effort. With my eyes still closed, I imagine a perfect barrel wave curling over me, my surfboard carrying me out of this awful box across a beautiful ocean to a deserted island where it wouldn't matter if I can hear or not because I'd be the only one there. Yvonne yells through the headphones, now you are going to hear a series of beeps. Her voice booms so loud it actually hurts my ears. I jump and the creepy smile on that Mickey Mouse-like mask teases me. I want to tell Yvonne that she doesn't need to shout. And she doesn't need the volume cranked all the way up. And she must think I do since I most likely bombed the word test. She's probably thinking, poor girl, she'll be all the way deaf by next week. Hurl, hurl, hurl. Yes, thanks, I know how it works. I'm hoping she won't finish the directions. Okay, she says, here we go. The first beep is loud and shrieky. As I push the clicker, I picture Mom and the stacks of printouts she downloaded from the internet to show Dr. James, as if he didn't already know all there is to know about cochlear implants. No, focus, listen, do not let Mom be right, I think. Click, I push the button. Click, click. There were beeps. There had to be. I close my eyes and concentrate as hard as I can. Yes, a beep, low, but I'm sure of it. Click. Another? Was it? Did I make it up? Click. Again, yes, I hear click. Eyes sealed tight shut. Click. I hold my breath, not wanting to miss a near silent beep. Click. 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 I jump at the sound of Yvonne's voice. Okay, sit tight for a second. Easy for her to say. With no noise coming through the headphones, the tinnitus takes over. That constant loud ringing in my ears drives me nuts, especially at night when I'm trying to fall asleep. I look to the corner where two of the metal walls, the ones that cage me in, meet and try to distract myself by counting holes from the bottom up. This time, I get to 92 before the vault door opens. Yvonne's smiling as she takes the clicker from my hands. Better than a shot at the doctor's office, right? I don't have my aids in, and though I can still hear certain things a little bit without them, Yvonne doesn't know this. So I pretend to have no clue what she's saying, especially because I'd take 100 shots at the regular doctor's office over sitting in this box of shame any day. Her question is ridiculous. and it's mean. She throws me that "I feel sorry for you" smile, the one people wear every time they find out I have hearing loss, and I wish I could erase it right off her face. I mean, if she's going to be an audiologist, she could at least be a better pretender. I can faintly hear that she's still talking, but I don't look at her. I don't need to read her lips to know what she's saying, that for this next test I don't have to do anything but sit still while the nearly upside down, lopsided headband that hugs the back of my head tests something with my bones. When Yvonne slips out and closes the door, before she gets to her side of the smudged window, I slide the headband backward about an inch. A test with no results is better than a test with bad ones. I close my eyes and mentally transport myself to my happy place, the beach, and prepare for Mom's scolding when Yvonne finally lets me out of this detention. If you want to find out what happens next for Rayne and her situation, you can totally pick up a copy of Hear Me from your school library, maybe purchase it from your favorite local indie bookstore, or you can always grab it via the link down there in the description box. But right now, let's go and have a chat with the author, Kerry, and learn more about this book. All right, readers, we are in for a treat today because we are here with the author of Hear Me, Kerry Cerra. Kerry, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I did a little research prior to chatting with you, and I learned through your bio that, like our main character, Rayne, you suffer from hearing loss, and I'm curious, did that make the book easier or more difficult to write, or maybe both? If you could tell us a little bit about that.
Definitely both. Easy because it's my lived experience. So there was definitely some research involved, but not as much as if I was writing from a different experience, something that was not authentic to my own. But harder for sure because I swore I would never tell a story about hearing loss. It was something I was embarrassed about for most of my life, and it was not something I was comfortable talking about until fairly recently, to be honest. So it was really hard because it's not a memoir by any means, but it was really difficult to put a lot of my personal emotional feelings on the page and open myself up to allowing other readers to really know me, which a part of me that I kept hidden for so long.
Yeah. Thank you for leaning into that and being willing to share your story. I recently heard a quote, I think it's from Brene Brown, that says, your story will be somebody else's survival guide. So even sharing pieces of it will hopefully be helpful. Which actually leads me to a different question. I'm gonna jump a bit out of order, and that is, why do you think it is important for authors to write about people from all walks of life? What is the benefit to that?
There's so many benefits, and sometimes we don't see it firsthand, which is okay because we're not writing for that pat on the back or anything else. But I will say that, I was diagnosed with hearing loss at 16, and I was an avid reader. I never saw a book with a character that had hearing loss or was deaf ever. And so I wish that there had been. I didn't discover a book like that until I read C.C. Bell's book, El Depo.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I was in my 40s by then, and I cried because it was the first time I felt seen in a book, like that I understood a character and related to a character. And, as a librarian later, for a high school, that bothered me tremendously, that it took me that long to find a book with representation. And so I do think it's important because, there's a review too, where my son wrote for me on Goodreads. And the first part of it is just like this apology. I didn't know he was even reading the book at the time. And he's like, I'm so sorry. I didn't get it, even though I grew up with knowing that, and that hit me in a different way because I was working as a librarian at the time. And I realized how much I needed to hear him say that to me. So it's not just about us being empathetic and reading for somebody else's experience to learn something or be able to relate, but to know that someone saw me. The way I reacted to Cece's book, my son reacted to mine, and how that touched me, how much I felt needed. I needed that. So it really changed the way I became a teacher and a media specialist, the way I talk to my students. you might need this book, you might want this book. When you return the book, I might ask questions like, how did this feel? Leave it open-ended in case they want to talk, because I didn't realize how much I wanted to talk about it.
Yeah. Books are like magical. They're so powerful that they can do this, and that they can help us in like the book world do big, important things. So again, thank you. Thank you for being willing to write this book. I shared with viewers as we were reading the first chapter a few of the parts where you included asterisks to represent words that Rayne is missing. And I really appreciated that because it helped me kind of experience her perspective on a very, on a small scale. But I'm curious, how did you come up with this method? Was it something you always knew you were going to do? Was there some trial and error? I'm curious about those asterisks.
I always tend to write in first person, present tense point of view. It's just my go-to. It's where I feel most comfortable. And so it really never occurred to me to write it another way.
Mm-hmm.
But in doing that, it did present a challenge. If I'm going to be authentic to her experience, how do I portray that on the page? And so I'm not really sure where the idea of asterisks came in. I didn't want to just leave a bunch of white space because people would just think there was misprinting in the book or something like that. I wanted them to know that it was actually words that she's not hearing. So I know that it's a lot. I actually was a little bit judicious. I didn't put as many as I would have for somebody who was on the verge of getting a cochlear implant. She would actually be missing more than what I'm representing on the page. But I didn't want readers to get so frustrated that they would stop reading because they have to puzzle it together too. So I loved that it was like you're saying, people can read it and say, I had no idea. We talk about hearing loss and we think we know what that means, but until you're really in Rayne's shoes, it's a whole different experience for the reader.
Yeah, well, bravo, you pulled it off. It was the perfect amount sprinkled in there, and I think that it achieved what you were hoping for it to achieve. Switching gears here a little bit, again, I was reading your bio and I learned that you have had a variety of jobs before author. Like you've worked at SeaWorld. You've mentioned you were a media specialist. I know that you were a teacher. And I'm curious, because people come to like being an author as like a secondary or tertiary, like a third career. How did having those other careers prepare you for being an author in maybe a way that like going to writing school or getting an MFA, like how, what do you think?
I don't have an MFA actually, but what happened for me was I was one of those kids that always hated people asking me what I wanted to be when I grew up because I had no idea. I felt that was a loaded question, a lot of pressure. And even when I got to college, I didn't know what I wanted to be. It took me 3 or 4 years and a change of major to really figure out that I liked social studies. I wanted to be a teacher. Social studies was really the only subject I was good at in school. And so it felt like a natural fit once I finally figured that out. But because of my hearing loss, social studies to me is really an important subject where you're not just lecturing and giving dates and facts and asking kids to memorize things. If it's done well, it should be, let's have conversations. Like, how did these things happen in history? How do we make sure these things don't happen again? But when you can't hear, you can't really have those important questions. And my hearing loss was progressive. So I knew it was getting worse. And it got to a point where I really couldn't be the kind of teacher I wanted to be. So I stepped back. And that was hard because I was like, it took me so long to figure it out. And I loved it. And now what am I going to do? And I just saw an ad in the back of a parenting magazine that said, hey, have you ever wanted to write for kids? And I was like, well, no, but let me see if I can do this. I'd always loved books. I had written poetry and things like that growing up. So I tried it and I ended up loving it. And so that's kind of how that happened. And I think the best part of it is I got to stay connected to kids because leaving the school was really difficult. I could have stayed. I could have, had the accommodations, but I just don't feel with social studies that it was going to benefit the kids for me to stay. So yeah, but I love being an author and doing school visits and now getting to reach kids on a whole different level.
Right. It's different. And sometimes you worry about that. But perhaps you're maybe even able to impact even more kids, which is amazing.
Yes.
So my last question for you is, number one, what kind of books do you like to read? Like if you're gonna pick and like no agenda, like purely for, enjoyment and entertainment, what do you pick? And then the second half of that is, do you think you read and look at books differently because you're an author than the average person? And maybe if yes, what are you looking for?
I always joke that I don't love fantasy, but yet Harry Potter's probably my favorite series of all time. So it's kind of weird for me to say that, I guess. But I can read across any genre, to be honest. And I find that I go through periods. As a high school media specialist the last few years, I was really reading what was popular in my library so that I could recommend books to students. We went through a period where nonfiction was hot, and then mysteries, and then last year it was romance. And so it kind of all over the place with YA, but I do a lot of adult books on audio when I'm walking my dogs or cleaning my house. And the only reason that I can do that now is just 3 years ago, I ended up getting a cochlear implant myself on one side. And so it is Bluetooth and it streams right into my ear. I went from like 8% hearing it this year to 71%. In loud situations. In quiet situations, I'm up to almost 90%. So when it's streaming into my ear, it's crystal clear. I never knew audiobooks could be so amazing. The voices are awesome. Like, I'm just like, I love it. I'm very excited to be able to do that, make my own phone calls now and things like that. But I think that all these other professions and all these other things in life led me to be the author that I am. Just because I think those, I feel like everybody always ends up where they're meant to be. It might not be what we thought for ourselves. I'm the perfect example. I'm no longer a social studies teacher, but I think I was always meant to write. And so sometimes people say, do you wish you had figured it out sooner? And no, I don't. I mean, all of those experiences allow me to write more authentically and to understand life isn't easy. It isn't easy. If we wrote books that were about characters that had this easy path, you would have no depth and no layers, and people would not connect. That's for sure. Life is messy. And so I appreciated all of the experiences that I had, all the professions I had. Being in a high school the last couple of years was a little bit harder because I write middle grade. And so I would read my stories. I'm like, okay, this kid sounds too old. Like, I'm kind of channeling my high school students, and I have to go back and strip out some of the verbiage, the language, and put it back in middle grade. But it's good and it's bad. It's wonderful, actually.
Yeah. I'm over here. I'm just nodding. Like, there are so many ways that we intersect and overlap. I was a social studies minor. I read books for my channel the way you read books for your students, but I listen to my grown-up books on Audible when I'm walking. Like, I'm just like, yes, Kerry, we are like the same.
I love it. Yeah. And I push the audiobooks a lot with my students. I did, like you, First Chapter Friday. I love that you do this because kids don't understand that these can be engaging, and the voices are, it's just so well done across the board. And I have so many students coming up to me going, how can I get that book right now? Like, give me your phone. Let's show you how to do this.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, good work as an author and as a media specialist. If readers have more questions for you, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you? And if you're allowed to tell us, like, what are you working on right now?
The best way is my email is right on my website. So there's no barrier. There's no one between me and that email. I do check my spam folder once in a while, but usually it comes right to me. So I'm also on Instagram. You can find me with Kerry O'Malley Cerra. And then Blue Sky is my new platform that I've been using lately. And but yeah, what was the second part?
I'll make sure to link all those things down in the description box so people don't have to search for them. And the last question was, can you tell us anything that you're working on now?
I'm actually very excited about this. Okay, so I just got a cover for my new book, which is coming out next summer. It's coming out right after Shark Week, which is perfect because it is a book about a 12-year-old girl who wears cochlear implants, and she's what I call an accidental activist. She doesn't like to speak up. She's pretty shy, but she finds out about the act of shark finning, where they off sharks, and it's pretty horrific. And the impact that has on, the oceans. So she's trying to change shark fishing laws in Florida. It's called Make a Little Wave. And like I said, I just got my cover, so I will be able to reveal that hopefully in January. So stay tuned to my social media, my website, because I will be posting it as soon as I can. I actually really love the cover. It's adorable. And then I have a nonfiction picture book coming out in March of 2026. So it's quite a ways away, with Little Brown. And that one's a nonfiction picture book about a group of deaf men that helped NASA win the space race. And nobody really knows their story. I'm very excited about that one. That's an important book for me. And 4 of those bioastronauts are still alive today. And I hope that they will be able to see the artwork and help me launch that book. And then I'm writing a couple new things, 3 new projects at once, actually, which I've never done before. But yeah,
You are so busy.
I'm excited for everything, though. It's actually an honor to be able to write for kids.
I agree. Yes. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your books. Readers, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you here again for another First Chapter Friday video next week. Happy reading.
See you guys. Thank you.
To continue reading Hear Me by Kerry O'Malley Cerra, check out a copy from your school library, purchase one from your favorite local indie bookstore, or grab it via the link in the description box. Then be sure to check out the rest of the First Chapter Friday playlist. This week's mystery manuscript quote says, "For now, I'm definitely done hiding." Thanks so much for visiting my channel, Learning with the Word Nerd. I hope you come back again for more great First Chapter Friday videos, brain breaks, teaching tips, direct instruction videos, and more. You can find content from me at these places. I'll see you again next time. Happy reading.